Serious troubles would seize the first space tourist Denis Tito on the 45th second of the flight. Overflowed with intense impressions, Tito started turning his head to and fro, simply ignoring all the given instructions, and got an unrestrained vomit outburst. Luckily, an American medicine that Musabayev had spared in his pocket came to the rescue.
Привет! О, привет! You're looking good. Hi, Dennis.
After the docking and embarking aboard the station, Tito failed to overcome his exceeding curiosity and, despite all the necessary precautions, started rambling around the modules at random. Observing those childish rushes of delighted Tito, accompanied by Musabayev flying after him in different directions, the American crew members at once nicknamed the latter the first space babysitter. Then Musabayev drew away from his duties. All of a sudden, I felt somewhat subconsciously that something was wrong. I turned around and saw Tito's figure just like in binoculars, because the station takes after a huge pipe. So I saw a little man spinning around. That's from here that Denis tried to fly over to the communicating module. Due to still disturbed coordination when attempting to pass through it, Denis happened to scratch his head badly against the spring, sticking up for just a millimeter. I've never seen aboard a human being with a huge blood bubble on the head. Both were of almost equal size. And then his blood started to fly chaotically about the station. You know, it's zero gravity, and liquids never pour down on the floor. My eyes popped out in terror. Denis himself was as if bewildered by shock. So he was screaming. Well, of course, we rushed to help him. This time the whole crew hastened to save Denis Tito. Moreover, the Americans had to thereby violate their special duty regulation. It was forbidden to them to enter in any conversation with a space tourist. It goes without saying, no aid assistance was supposed either. However, the wound mess never stopped there. In 40 minutes, the ISS was to carry out a communication session with Earth. It was clear to everyone that if NASA had seen Denis Tito, his head bandaged, they would make a scene and demand his immediate removal from orbit. Certainly, they wouldn't fail to use any excuse in order to, if to put it mildly, rule out the very possibility of future space tourists' flight participation, making allusions like, remember, what happened to Denis the Pioneer? Consequently, the first space tourist's scratch head turned into a political issue. Besides, no one knew how to sort things out. On the one hand, it was stupid enough to set Tito out like that. On the other, hiding him could also excite suspicion among the ground-based authorities. A general solution was found, a baseball cap to cover the bandage and the plaster. But Tito refused to wear it at the session, as it had a label Pizza Hut. He's not a pizza deliveryman, he's a billionaire. Well, necessity is the mother of invention. So I said, Yura, find me an insulating tape instantly. He brought it red-colored and scissors. Then we taped the label so it looked like a Red Guard's cap band, and thank God, Tito agreed to put it on. Later on, there was a descent from the orbit, an emergency trajectories alteration, which caused an enormous overshot of the initial landing point. Then another trajectory alteration applied in order to compensate the above-mentioned error. Sevenfold overloads were literally flattening out the cosmonauts. Vibration turned the dashboard into a solid black field. One could make sure that the first space tourist survived only on the ground.
Denis, how was your flight?
Best of all.
I was in paradise, Tito was exclaiming after landing. He was alive and felt like the happiest earthling.
It's going to be the best thing.
Oh, NASA, no big deal. The next day, Tito became a national hero of two countries, the United States and Russia. 8 years later, after the first space tourist Denis Tito's flight, NASA Administrator Charles Bolden would arrive at Baikonur. For the first time in the history of NASA and Roscosmos bilateral relations, the newly appointed chief manager, the first foreign trip, and right away to Russia.
Oh mama, mama blue, oh mama blue. Hey, yeah!
Charles Bolden came to be present at the spacecraft's launch with the crew and the 7 space tourists aboard. That would mean that there are no more disagreements between the 2 leading space powers.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much.
Though there will no longer be the space tourism in the form it existed for the past 8 years, which doesn't mean it's the final chord.
Эпоха туризма не закончена.
The age of space tourism is not over.
Я в этом уверен.
On the contrary, it will develop further, I'm sure. There were a lot of offers to Roscosmos concerning different flight options and space tourism
По
variations.
различным вариантам космического туризма. Есть предложение закупать.
Someone would like to buy spacecraft hiring a crew commander.
экипажа.
Others consider a possibility of linking up with the ISS,
И работа.
whereas the rest plan to work in the Earth's orbit without docking.
На орбите. Без пристыковки.
This is a prototype of a tourist spaceship. Initially developed for the military and named Almaz, diamond in English, it's perceived presently as the most promising machine intended to carry to the orbit crews with already 2 space tourists aboard. Right now you can see a shuttlecraft which has been tested in space. Altogether, there were implemented 9 spaceflights. 1 capsule carried out 3 landings successfully. It means that this system is reusable. In 2015, such a spacecraft is to be carried to the launch pad and placed in orbit. Guy Laliberté, the 7th space tourist, has symbolically turned over the dividing page of space tourism chronicles. It's high time humankind started afresh. What's the thingy dangling in front of you? Sir, it's a weightlessness indicator, a toy lion. My kids used to sleep with it so that it could keep home scent during a 6-month mission. Lions and clowns for the first time in the orbit. Toys here come alive and can fly, while common water turns into magic balls that look like tiny transparent copies of Earth. A brief circus number, unexpected even for the clown himself. Only once in season, in the orbit exclusively, clowns look at the world not through pinky glasses, but waterless. Alles up. Time shall pass, and people will be flying into space on trade union tours. Life has slightly amended these words of Sergei Korolev. In fact, Earthlings did undertake orbital voyages, but as space tourists. Meanwhile, absorbed by our daily routine, we never mentioned that in the beginning of the 3rd millennium, there had come a new era on Earth. Madame Barilla, could your husband Clown be on equal terms with professional cosmonauts in space?
You know, you could have had 2 cosmonauts that didn't want, you know, a clown to accompany them. But he brought something new, something fresh.
Moving, ciao, bye-bye, everybody.